try to attract visitors to Israel and to peddle a positive image of the country. But it's not the sort of activity you would expect of a young Texan from San Antonio.
With us today to explain why he is in America promoting Israel, why he's promoting Israel in America, is Charles Levine, director of the Israel Caravan. Welcome. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
What is it exactly you're doing? I don't quite understand.
I, along with 5 other former Americans who are now living in Israel, are going around to 9 different states, 22 different communities, to talk about Israel, to talk about what it's like to live in Israel, especially from an American point of view, to tell people that there's a lot more behind the headlines that you might not know about. There's more than, unfortunately, the few bombs that take place a year. There's a regular, vital life that's going on there. And we're also telling people that Israel's just about America's best friend in the Middle East.
Well, you're sponsored by the World Zionist Organization and the American Zionist Federation, so I assume you're trying to encourage emigration to Israel, not just visits in a positive image.
That's
Is that right?
That's exactly right. We thought when we were sitting around our table in Jerusalem several months ago that the best way to talk about emigration to Israel was to send Americans who had emigrated, which is how I ended up directing the project. So that's what we're doing.
Well, we'd like to look at some of the slides that you use when you talk to people and talk about Israel. We'll look at them. You can tell us very briefly about them and how you use them in your pitch, if I could call it that.
Sure. Our caravan includes all kinds of films, audio-visual shows, and exhibits. You're seeing now some of the shots of Jerusalem that are part of one of our special multimedia presentations. Jerusalem's a very fascinating city. It's a place that it's no cliche to say literally history's in the air. There's the ancient, there's the modern, there's a city that David built, and it's also a city that you can come to today and feel very many similarities to American society.
A lot of people who go there might be afraid to go there, afraid that it's not safe, because of the PLO attacks.
I could mention only one thing that I think demonstrates the point very well. When we were sitting around that same table deciding where we were going to head in America, everybody said, that city's good and that city's good. We got to a place, Greensboro, North Carolina. They said, you can't go there. That entire city is going crazy with Nazis and Klansmen and communists and everything. We went to Greensboro already. We had a delightful time. The people there are great, just as the people in every other city. There's more, as I said, behind the headlines. It's not all violence. It's a place where you can leave your door unlocked at night, where your kids can be on the streets at 3 in the morning if you choose to let them be. And life goes on much more normally than many people believe.
What about the immigration from Israel? I don't know if these figures are real. Well, the latest figure I had at 26,000 Israelis left. Are these Israelis or are these Americans who were there?
These are people who are leaving, whether they're
in '78. Now that's what, almost 3 years old. These figures now. Is it a problem?
It's a problem from a personal point of view. I feel anguish over the fact that people are leaving. But on the other hand, it's a democratic, open society. People come. A lot more people come than leave. And a lot of people leave. They go for maybe a year or 2 years to advance their studies. They go to make a little money, perhaps, in other countries. They do all kinds of things, but hopefully most of them come back sooner or later.
One of the news magazines used the statistic that about 25,000 people in Israel would leave this year, which is 10,000 more than left in '79. That's a tremendous jump in people because of dissatisfaction, the economy, and various problems. And some of those people are Sabras, people who were born there, 32-year-olds and 31-years-olds. And that must be quite a blow to...
It's not the best economy in the world. I would be the first to admit that. But I have to say that in the past, there have been periods in the pioneering days of Israel where up to 80% of the Jews living there have gone to other countries. The figures are nowhere near that now. It's a country where Jews are still coming from 70 different countries in the face of the earth. There are Americans coming, about 5,000 a year or so. And as I said, people are leaving. People are also coming.
When you give your presentation, do you also bring up the problems, the economic problems, the inflation at whatever it was, 130-some% this year?
Sure. Well, I like to say we've whipped it at a very easy 134% a year annual right now. But we haven't quite beaten inflation. But what I try to do is, I'm not an economist. I really don't understand the deeper theoretical matters involved. All I try to do is tell people how we manage to live despite everything on a day-to-day basis. I explain how we have automatic salary increments every month, along with the price rises that keep soaring. And I try to explain to them how the day-to-day life allows people to live there and in many cases to live rather nicely.
What about, are there not special advantages to people who come to Israel to live from other countries in terms of, as I recall when we were there, many times we were there, the people who came in could get a car and bring it with them, or could get a special deal on a car and not have to pay $30,000 for a 68 Chevy or something, you know.
Most of the concessions that you're speaking of are in the field of tax or in customs rights. The concept is that if you are going to leave a place like America, you shouldn't have to necessarily suffer for that decision. So you shouldn't necessarily gain from it either. But what you're allowed to do is to try to retain a semblance of your standard of living that you're used to. So, for example, you're allowed to bring in your household appliances, refrigerators, washing machines, and a car without tax customs that you might otherwise have to pay as a normal Israeli citizen.
These are some of the newer buildings that are.
Oh yes, that's a very stark contrast.
Next to the ancient.
You can see that virtually any area of the city of Jerusalem today.
How is Israel, if it is at all, threatened by the war in the Persian Gulf today?
It's a very interesting thing. We've drawn a few lessons from it. The first is, I feel very strongly, this war should show that Israel is not the key problem in the Middle East. We hear many times that Israeli intransigence, this, that. I'm convinced that this war demonstrates, I was convinced before the war started, that this proves that here's a major war going on between two fully armed countries that has nothing in the world to do with Israel, Jews, Zionism, or anything related. It also shows that there's very little connection between the oil threat that we hear so much about in America and in Israel, and between the entire Arab-Israeli conflict. Here you have, again, two major oil producers at war, at each other's throat, that it has nothing to do with the issue of Israel.
Well, but does it threaten? It threatens the stability of that entire region, obviously.
To the extent that any war opens doors that might not otherwise be open, we're worried about it, and we're watching it very closely. But as of today, there doesn't appear to be any direct threat to Israel.
You've been in Jerusalem, what, two years now
2 years.
in Israel living? Are you making Israel your permanent home? Have you emigrated to Israel?
Yes, I love it. It's a great place to live. I'm delighted to be there. I'm delighted that I, as a Jew, after 2,000 years of speaking metaphorically, of course, after 2,000 years of not being allowed to live there, can today get off a plane, show my passport to an Israeli clerk and say, you know, I'm back home. It's a great feeling.
Is there anything that would draw someone who is not Jewish to live in Israel?
One of the gentlemen on my caravan, Reverend J. Rawlings, is a Christian Zionist who has moved to the old city of Jerusalem. He's going with us, and he's a very interesting person. Yes, people who really feel take their Bible seriously and who feel a kinship with the Jewish people and with what we're doing in Israel, not in large numbers, but certainly in small, significant numbers, are coming to live in Israel.
We have about 30 seconds. Isn't it true that many Israelis, while it's a Jewish state, are not very religious, in fact?
Sure.
It's a very secular place in many ways.
Sure. I mean, that's a misconception that a lot of people do have. I'm happy you pointed it out. People are not all religious there. You are whatever you want to be, but Jewish rhythm to it. I mean, the holidays are Jewish, and the week is Jewish. The Sabbath is on Saturday, and everybody observes that. There's a sort of a natural overriding rhythm that is Jewish.
Where's the Israel caravan going next, Charles? We're out of
We are heading south. We are going to Savannah, and we're going to North Florida and Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, all across the South and the Southwest.
Thank you very much, Charles Levine, the Israel Caravan, for joining us today on Take Two.
Thank you.
And